look better on TV.
Ladies and gentlemen, live sports radios were distributed as you entered today. Select the channel as shown on the video board to tune in and listen to your favorite coach or student athlete. And stay connected and participate in the conversation using the hashtag CFP Playoff.
It seemed like, especially early on, maybe they used it a little more than you guys were expecting.
We expected them to use tempo. They did a great job alternating how they played the game, which is part of, every game you play. They're going to be packages for every offense that pick up the pace and things where they check with me, and they did a great job throughout the game. And I think anytime you play defense in today's day and age of college football, you better be ready to handle tempo.
The way you guys really seem to maximize personnel groupings with your substitutions, what did that take away when they sort of stuck you in your base for stretches in that game?
Well, you get to sub when they sub, so you're prepared that, hey, when they don't sub, then you either have to get them on extremely quickly, or you have to play with the guys you have. And when they subbed, we were able to sub, and we have to follow the plan from that standpoint.
You're taking out Michigan and Ohio State in the last two CFP semifinals. Can you talk about the differences in those offenses and what challenges they present, different styles to you guys' defense?
Yeah, you gotta do what your personnel dictates. So both of those teams kind of play to their strengths. Obviously, when we played Michigan, they had a lot of great tight ends, the offensive line, and they would take shots down the field. And then you play Ohio State, they have great quarterbacks and receivers and really skilled players across the board on their offense, as well as an offensive line, so they threw it around more. I think, offenses that make it to this part of the season, just like TCU and what they've done to get here, that they play to the strengths of their players and they use them well. That's what every great offense does. And so, those two teams were different stylistically, but they were the same in the way that they made sure to get the ball in the hands of their playmakers. That's what you have to do. There's structural things in terms of personnel groupings, in terms of certain coverages that you play, ways that you line up, adjust the formations. But we've evolved a lot, just as I'm sure they have. But there's kind of a base structure. It's like you go into your pantry at the house. There's all kinds of spices and ingredients and different foods, and you can make whatever dish you want as long as you have them in there. So a lot of the base structure is similar, but a lot of the defense is different now. I think attention to detail, discipline, work hard on a day in and day out basis, that doesn't change. That's what you have to do to be successful. I think every successful organization in the world has a high standard for how they do things, and it starts with great leadership, which Coach Smart brings, and so does Coach Saban. So, yeah.
Coach, as you prepare for TCU and you look at them, do they remind you of anybody that you've already played this year? Can you compare them to anybody you've seen?
They're really unique in the sense that there are passing game concepts that carry over from Coach Dyke's history in terms of the air raid background. When you see them open it up and spread it out, a lot of the concepts match up with maybe what Mississippi State did with Mike Leach and things of that nature. But they're they run the ball extremely well, and they're committed to running the ball, and they're really good at what they do in terms of the counter run schemes and the zone run schemes that they play with. And I think that makes them unique because it can really run the ball well. The quarterback adds to that element. The backs are really good. And then on top of that, when they do spread you out, they have the ability to go air raid when they want to. And so there's not an exact fit in terms of matching them up that way, but you see elements from other people. Yeah. He's been making great runs all year. He's an explosive back that breaks tackles, makes people miss at the second level, and has home run speed. And you just saw that come to fruition against Michigan as he had more opportunities. But I think if you watch the explosive play reel, and they're an extremely explosive offense, and you just watch every play over 15 yards on the season, he shows up all over it, whether it was last game or the first game of the season. And I think that it's easy when you watch the tape, regardless of what the stats or carries show, to have a lot of respect for that guy. He's a really good back.
Is he kind of a big
think when you have a team that's been able to make it to the college football playoff, the national championship, that all their guys are big game guys, and every game's a big game if you approach it the right way. And I think he's been consistent throughout. But there's been obviously some games where he's had more explosive runs. And so I understand why you said that. His ability to extend plays, his competitiveness, he's extremely physical. You know, when he runs the ball, he is running to gain yards. He's not running to give himself up and slide. He is seeking contact. I think that you have to prepare for that at a high level because, you know, a lot of quarterbacks slide. A lot of people don't, you know, there's hidden yardage throughout the game where if you don't tackle him like a running back, then you can let a 2nd and 7 turn into a 2nd and 3 in the hurry, and you can't play the game that way. In addition, I think he does an exceptional job on his deep balls. He throws a very catchable deep ball, really accurate, and he trusts his guys on the outside to go up and play the ball. And I think that's what is unique. His ability on the run game, when you know you try to take the backs out of the game, he can make you pay for it. He's done it time and again. When he scrambles to run, and he adds yards at the end of the run, which extends drives. And then he's really become, when you watch him this year compared to where he was when you go back and watch film earlier in his career, he's really evolved as a passer. And I think he's leaps and bounds better. Credit to him for the work he's put in and their staff for developing him. But he throws the ball extremely well down the field, which is why they've had all these explosives this year. Yeah.
What do you remember from that year in terms of the different transition, just any resistance that was pressing the players who were there already and those who
You know, my best memories from that year are about the guys who embraced what we were doing and who had a vision for what we've been able to accomplish now and wanted to be a part of that. You know, there's always difficulties in transition years. I would bet that if you asked Coach Dykes, that there's been difficulties that they've managed to overcome this year and been extremely successful, and a credit to them in their first year to be able to do what they've done. But my main memories from that year is honestly about the guys who ended up becoming the leaders in that program and who laid the foundation for what we are doing now, because you could see that from Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. You could see that from Isaiah Wynn, Lorenzo Carter, Davin Bellamy, Roquan Smith, so many guys beyond them. I could sit up here and waste my next 30 minutes naming all the guys who are so important to this foundation. And that's really what I remember, is not necessarily the guys that didn't want to get on the same page with us, but the guys who did, and a lot of credit goes to them for what we've been able to accomplish now. I think the postseason practice that year to get ready to play TCU in the Liberty Bowl, I think you saw guys approach that game, even though it was the Liberty Bowl, with no disrespect to that game, but it wasn't a New Year's Day bowl, it wasn't a playoff game. But the way those guys that I mentioned, in addition to the rest of the team, approached that game, they approached it as it was the first game of the next season and not the last game of the previous season. And that really sticks out to me because they went about it the right way. Yep.
When you come off the league last Saturday as a coach, how much you balance tip the cap, this is how college football's played now, you're playing great offense, versus man, we made a lot of mistakes, and you get a whole lot better.
The first thing we do on Sunday, no matter what the scoreboard says, is be extremely critical in our write-up of what we did in the game. And, you know, we go from things we did well to things we did poorly, to preparation errors, to personnel errors. Maybe we weren't in the right personnel grouping, or we mismanaged a substitution, whatever it was. And then other comments on the game, things that you would do the next time you played that opponent. If you were playing the game tomorrow, what would you have changed? And the list of things we did well, no matter if we're playing Samford or Ohio State, is always much shorter than the list of things we did poorly in our preparation errors, because we try to be as critical as possible of what we do, no matter what the scoreboard says. So I think you approach things the same way. Let's be really critical of what we need to fix, look at it, assess whether it was schematic, whether it was coaching based, whether it was execution based, whether it was technique based. And sometimes, you're in good position and you give up a play, and that's football. They work hard 365 days a year, the way we do too. So I think you got to look at it that way, and you got to focus on what you can do better yourself as a unit and as a team and as a coach or a player. And we try to approach it that way, and that's how you continue to get better and have success.
Coach, what are some of the things you guys are focusing on trying to slow down the play?
I think you have to make sure, first of all, he's obviously an outstanding player. What is great about him is his ability to not only get on top for the deep balls, but his ability to extend plays and get yards after catch. So I think you look at how does he create his plays and then present that in terms of here's what we have to do to limit him. So on deep balls, we have to win our fair share. We have to get him cut off and not let him get on top of us because he has great speed. So when he is on top, Duggan does a great job of putting the ball out there for him to run under it. And then on the intermediate throws or the short throws, the screens, the slants, things of that nature, we got to get him on the ground and limit yards after catch because he does a great job making you miss.
Would you compare Duggan to any other SEC quarterback you faced? And how tough is it to keep him in a pocket?
I hate to do the comparison game. I know that it would be he's unique. There's a reason he's a Heisman finalist, right? And he does a great job with his legs and finishing runs, and he also does a great job in the passing game, especially on the deep balls. And that makes him unique because he's not just a runner, and he's not just a designed quarterback run guy. He's not just a guy who pulls the ball in zone read. He has over 500 yards on quarterback runs. He has another, I believe, 170 yards on scrambles, and then he throws the ball, really well down the field. So I think you have to be pretty unique to be a Heisman finalist, and so I would say he's just, that's what he is. He's unique in and of himself.
What impresses you most about TCU's offense schematically? What's really enabling them to turn this around?
I think they run the ball extremely well. They are really physical up front. They have creative scheme in terms of ways to create issues for how you want to play certain runs. They're not going to they know the answers to what you're going to do to them in the run game, and they have plans for your answers. So I think that it's a mark of credit to their coaching staff and credit to their players for, taking the plan in terms of, okay, when you do this when we're running counter, here's our answer. When we do this when we're running read zone, here's our answer. And they have some really unique runs as well. And then they do a great job of, like I said, vertical passing game is huge for them, but they find ways to get the ball to their playmakers in space in the short part of the field with room to run. So eliminating yards after catch is critical, but they're going to find ways to create space in their scheme so that the guys have yards to run after catch. And we had a great job of getting to the ball with every hat we have to take that away.
Is this a totally unique challenge? Are there parallels with any other offense that you guys went up against?
They're obviously when you look at Coach Riley and Coach Dyke's roots in terms of offenses, you can see the background where some of the passing game, especially when they're opened up, their opened up passing game, you can see air raid style, right? You can see that whole tree of offense. When you go look at their game when they have the tight end in the game, you can see a lot of that has carryover and similarities from what Garrett's brother Lincoln does in terms of that part of the game. And then their run game is really well balanced based on the personnel that they're in. And so I think that obviously Coach Richter, who's their offensive line coach, he does a really good job in terms of scheming up the run game that they're going to use as well. So I think it's unique in that regard, but they're really good at what they do. Yep. Yeah. Hey, Chip.
I'm kind of fascinated with nickel play start.
Yeah.
And you guys, it seems like it's become such a really, I think back in the day it was called. But, neither Javon nor Tyson are really big guys. But, obviously require things.
So it's interesting you make reference to, we used to call it a rover, and I really think the rover position is, I don't want to say dead. It's not dead, but the way that guys would play as a rover has changed now. That's why the star is its own entity. The guy needs to be able to play like a slot corner, right? So you need a guy who's able to play man to man. Because so much of the RPO game, so much of the spread game requires you to win isolated matchups. You can't just spot drop and play zone. And back when you think about a lot of rovers, when people would play with a rover, they were rushers or spot droppers a lot of the time. The star and the unique thing. Correct. And now, when you look at, 80% of the NFL is playing nickel defense because you have to match up to all the 11 personnel and the slot receivers, and that's carried over to college football and the way the game's played. So what you need there and what those guys have to do to be successful is they have to be able to impact the game as a blitzer, right? Which Javon and Tyke have done a great job of that. They have to be able to, when they go to the perimeter screen game, they have to be able to hold up out there, which a lot of that, you're right, those guys aren't the guys with the most height, bulk, length, but what they do have is the tenacity and competitive toughness and leverage to be able to, if they strike people the right way, they get under them and play with good discipline and toughness, they can still leverage the ball on the perimeter. Okay, so blitz, leverage the perimeter, screen game and run game, and then they got to be able to win in man-to-man coverage at the end of the day because slot receivers are so good. Slot receivers are not where you put your third best option now. In some offenses, slot receiver is the first or second best option. So you have to be able to win there, and it's a really unique position. And in recruiting now, you don't necessarily recruit a star per se, but every guy you say, whether he's a corner or a safety, can he play star? And it's a huge value if you think it's a guy who is a corner with enough toughness and size that could play star, or a safety you're recruiting that has enough man-to-man coverage ability to slide down there. And the more guys you have who can play star, the better you'll be on defense.
You're recruiting DBs to help recruit stars, but this guy's got some cornerback safety.
Every guy who plays DB needs to have a secondary position in our mind, whether that's a nickel or a dime or a guy who you think could play safety and corner. You want to have a guy who can be really versatile scheme-wise, the way we love to sub. You don't want to have a guy who can only do one thing. One, for their career, it's important for their career that they're able, if they want to have longevity, to be able to be versatile. And two, for us to be able to match up with all the different offenses we play, because week to week, the style of the offense changes, and then what we're going to ask each position on the field changes, so to speak. It's a really important position. Yep. Yeah. I think that what's unique about Jalen is his ability to impact the game, both in the run game and pass game, and his level of athleticism. Sometimes you have defensive linemen that, hey, they're great run defenders. They're great when they're stationary, but they're not good when you move them. Or you have the smaller, quicker D linemen that are great when you move them and gap them and penetrate them, but they can't hold up when they get doubled. Or you have the guys that are your first and second down only guys that can't play on third down, or the third down guys that really don't want them in there on first and second down. And so he can do all that. He's extremely well-rounded. If you want to move him, he can move. If you want to ask him to go strike and play two-gap and play technique, he can do that. And he impacts the game on third down at a high level. And he's a true four-down player, because as much as offenses go for it on fourth down now, you can't just be a three-down player. You got to be a four-down player. He's really good. You won't get a ranking out of me. That's out of fairness to him and out of guys that we've been around before. But he's really good. His best is really, really good. He is humble and quiet, and he just loves football and he loves his teammates. I mean, if you watch, you'll see him hang out with the walk-ons as much as you will the scholarship guys, and I think that's unique. He values everybody in the organization. I think it's exciting for him. It's exciting for everybody. We're on a 5-hour flight out here. I think we made better time than that, but the screen on the plane said it was going to be a 5-hour flight. And when you're traveling and you're looking out the window, you say, man, the game of football has brought so many people together and has brought so many people a long way. And it's such a beautiful thing about what sport is able to do and this event in general. Yep. I think the most important stat right now to me in football when you're talking about coaching defense is eliminating explosive plays. As the explosive plays go up, the points go up. So I would say this is a really explosive offense. I believe they have the most touchdowns in the country, over 50 yards on the season, and they have a ton of huge chunk plays, over 10 plays of 15 yards or more a game. So that would be number one, is eliminate explosives, minimize explosives, because as the explosives go up, the points go up. So if you don't want to give up points, don't give up explosives. Our goal in every game is to limit what the other team does as much as possible. We don't relax our standards based on who we are playing or what they're good at. We're proud of the way they competed. But the guys were resilient and never gave up. Obviously, y'all can look at the scoreboard and say we gave up way too many points, way too many explosives. But the guys on the sideline were resilient. They said they knew that we had to get one. The next drive was the only drive we could control. And so if we get one stop, we give the offense back the ball, and then we try to get another stop. And the guys did that. And I don't know how you could say that you're disappointed of somebody when they never quit and they were resilient and they didn't let this. You, as a coach, you preach all the time about playing without a scoreboard, and they did that. Do we want the results to be better? Absolutely. Okay, that's nobody shies away from that, players and coaches included. But you can't be disappointed of people who never stopped chopping, never stopped focusing on what they had to do for us to win. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yep. Size, I mean, you start with the makeup, right? Size and speed, obviously, special in those characteristics. He's able to win on vertical balls. The guy has a ton of go balls that he wins on release, and then he stacks guys, which you have to be able to do. You have to be able to get off the line and get off press, and he does that. And when he gets off the line, he does a great job of putting himself into a position where the DB struggles to recover. But beyond that, he's not just a vertical threat. He does a really good job yards after catch, makes a lot of people miss. I believe he has 18 forced missed tackles is what our quality control guys totaled up for us. And so I think, he's can hurt you in the short game. He can hurt you in the screen game. He can hurt you on the vertical balls. He's just really well-rounded. In addition to the fact that he has size and speed, those are all the traits you want in a wideout. When you play in championship games, there's one-on-ones all over the field, and great players, they embrace the challenge of one-on-one matchups. So I think our guys are excited. So Stetson does an excellent job of you might fool him on something once, you don't normally fool him again. He's really smart. He not just in terms of his natural intelligence as a person, but in terms of football savvy. People would describe that as instincts. He has a great feel for where things are coming from. It's like when you're a little kid, you're playing and you have a 3-year-old, right? And they got the cards you put upside down, and you're matching them, and you flip them over, and you find where they are. When he sees defenses, a lot of times he may miss it the first time, but he finds it the next time. There's moments in good on good scenarios where we go ones versus ones where he figures out exactly what we're in, and and he gets the offense in the right play. And I think obviously he's extremely athletic. He's a competitor. He does a really good job pushing the ball down the field, and he's clutch in critical moments. But in addition to that, he's so savvy in the game of football, and that helps him, I think, always know where to go with the ball and what he wants to do with it. And I think that's what, to be a great quarterback, you have to do that.
More so, I mean, how early did you notice that?
The physical skill set you noticed early in terms of his ability to extend plays and cause problems. It's well documented going back to when we played in the Rose Bowl that he gave our defense fits when he was emulating Baker Mayfield as the scout team quarterback. That physical skill set he had in high school. If you go watch the film at Pierce County, he's running around all over the field and making those throws. You don't really know what level of processor somebody is, what level of football instincts they have until they're out there. And man, he's so impressive in that way. In addition to, he has great physical tools in terms of his athleticism and ability to extend plays, and he throws the heck out of the football. Yeah.
What's different for you guys this year? Last year, Indianapolis, a rematch scenario, 41 years. This year, different team. Does this feel different than last year, or is it still playing in a national championship game and there's going to be pressure?
It's a national championship game. It's different every time you get to play in a game that has more stakes, and every game has stakes, right? But I mean, our guys do a great job of approaching the prep the right way. They go out there today. We're going to follow our blueprint for what we do, 2 days before the game, right? It's 2 days, right? Correct? Okay, just making sure. It's when you end up playing a game on Monday, it was great in the semifinal because you say, oh, game's on Saturday. Day of the week tells me exactly where we are. But, they got to approach it as such. There's a reason we prep the way that we do. Obviously, we're out here in California with y'all, and the stakes are as high as they get in college football. But, our guys do a great job of focusing on what they have to do to be successful. And from that standpoint, it is different. Everybody knows that. We need to play our best game, but the prep is what got you here, so we can't abandon the habits that have helped us be successful. I've been so far into what we need to do to limit their offense that's exceptional that I have not been able. Obviously, I'm familiar with how they line up and what they do stylistically, and we try to do the best job possible with our scout teams here. And we have a lot of coaches committed to scout work, and they're helping the best way that we can to help our offense. But if I started making comments about the TCU defense, it would be without enough research because we got our hands full with their offense. This team has understood that they have to continue to get better to be where we want to be, where we are today, and they've embraced that in prep. And I think last year's team, for credit to them for all the talent that we had, they always wanted to continue to attack the day and become the best version of themselves. But I think if you were marrying up and say what's different is just how far some of these guys have had to come to improve. They have a great skill set, or they wouldn't be at the University of Georgia. Anybody that gets recruited to play here has ability. But there have been a lot of guys who've had to grow significantly, whether that's a guy who's played but has never been a leader that had to become a leader, guys who are young who had to step in starting for the first time, or guys that are older who may have been role players that have had to really step up and play a lot of snaps for us. I think that's the biggest difference. Is just I love these guys for how they've competed and the strides that they've made to get where we are. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's fun. Oh, sure. Thank you.
Sorry, man. Newhouse gets a hold of the mic.
No issue. Thank you. Oh, cool.
It's amazing. They're trying to get Drake to give up. They won't stop talking. Now he's like on his second point. It's big time. Talking about the damn air raid. All right, we're here with Schumann, co-defensive coordinator for Georgia. How much of the game plan last week are you able to carry over? Is this something start from scratch and build a whole new program?
So when you start the process of building a defense in the offseason, starting with spring ball, going through summer to fall camp, you build a library of tools. You try to prepare yourself to have answers for every type of offense, and that way you have a good bank to work from. And so when you start on Sunday, let's say Sunday, even though it wasn't a Sunday this time, of game prep, you look at your whole menu of what our players already know and say what fits this offense. And then you say, okay, where are the holes based on what they do that we need to have answers for what they're going to do. So it's not a whole new defense. We haven't played the same. There are certain calls that have carried over to every opponent we've played this year. And there are certain calls that have showed up for one opponent and disappeared forever. And so and then it just stays in the bank until we need it again. So there will be things that carry over, and there will be things that we do in this game that we've done earlier in the year for similar challenges, and there will be things that are new specifically for our opponent. And that's kind of the recipe we follow.
So TCU obviously leans a lot on the quarterback. Max Duggan will do a lot, running game, passing game. What are the challenges of being able to slow down a guy like that?
You have to account for him every play in terms of run game, in terms of scrambling, in terms of ability to throw the ball. I mean, that guy, it makes them go in every phase of their offense and has really talented players around him. But I think you have to be really sound in what you do because you can't not account for him.
Thanks, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Toss it over to you, Jake.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, thank you. Good. How you doing? Yeah. That's a good looking head.
It is a great head. Let's put the chair back on the box.
Y'all getting kind of demanding.
Thank you.
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. So I cover the UCLA football team. I'm a local reporter out here. So I cover quite a bit of Chip Kelly and his offense. I just wanted to pick your brain. I was kind of curious on your thoughts on Chip Kelly, kind of maybe how he's helped contribute to changing what is college football offense?
Well, I did a phenomenal job at Oregon. Obviously playing with tempo, which fatigue makes cowards of us all. And certainly when they play fast, you lose eye control defensively. You don't get your cleats in the dirt. You don't get ready to play. You get out leveraged on formations. And that's what tempo creates. And that's something that Chip's brought to college football, along with a lot of other offensive coaches. But Chip's done an outstanding job.
I guess two-part question for you. Does the tempo offense keep you up at night? And how has just tempo offense and offense in general changed?
Really good players keep me up late at night. And then we prepare our players. Our offense plays with tempo, plays fast at times, but you become good at what you see a lot defensively, in my experience. And Coach Smart does a great job as far as practice schedules of making our guys practice against tempo, whether we're getting ready for a team that plays with tempo or not, because you never know when you're going to get it, so you got to be prepared for it. So with some teams. And so I think it's really important that you prepare for those looks, and that's something we spend a lot of time on as far as the tempo is concerned.
And just thoughts on TCU, what you're kind of seeing from them, maybe what do you guys expect there?
Well, very explosive offense. I think they lead the country in explosive plays of 50 yards or more. I think they're second in 40-yard plays or more. Very experienced team. You got close to 200 snaps on their offensive line. Depending on what personnel grouping you're looking at, 9 starters that are seniors. Very talented out wide, obviously with Johnston and Williams. But Barber and Davis are really good slot receivers. Davis has got 6 touchdowns as a returner, 5 as a punt returner, 1 as a kick returner. Duggan's an outstanding player, can hurt you with the legs and the arm. But they're a balanced team. They run the ball extremely well. So whatever personnel grouping you're looking at, it's really about 50-50 run-pass when it all boils down to it. So I think they do a really good job of staying balanced, which I think helps them create explosive plays down the field.
Hey, Will, I want to ask you, the Ohio State game, a lot of extended plays and scramble drills, having to cover 5-6 seconds. Max Duggan is very capable of that as well. What's been kind of the focus, and what can you guys do to maybe limit those opportunities?
Well, we work on scramble drill a lot, obviously not enough. We gave up 14 points in the Ohio State game on scramble pass. And we had, initially you have the receiver covered, and then you got to win in space versus a very skilled player, and they've got a bunch of skilled players as well as far as TCU is concerned. So something you continue to work on, finish on the quarterback better, and finish down the field on receivers better, which we have not done a great job of that, and we spent more time working on it.
Well, what kind of fine art is that to rotate defensively? You're so big, you spend so much energy. How many do you have to have? How close do you have to watch them?
As many as you can have. The most exerting thing you do as a football player is rush the passer. And it's the most exerting thing you do. And when big guys, in my experience, have run out of gas, they're done. There's nothing left. And when they are done, they can't help you anymore. So you have to have as many as you can that can go rush the edges, that can go push the pocket in the middle. You can never have enough. I can assure you that. And anytime we have an opportunity to go a 1-for-1, which means if they have subbed or the ball's gone out of bounds and we have a chance to sub, we're going to sub. We don't ever want our big guys playing more than 6 snaps. We want to be able to rotate. Now, we need to have different combinations of guys probably in there together. And some guys can sustain and play longer than others. But we're going to rotate our big guys.
Is it harder to find those guys like Jalen?
No.
Gaps?
Yeah.
The same?
Very difficult. There's not a lot of men walking around this earth that can do what he can do.
You've been around the SEC long. What's happening lately in perspective? To be able to play for 2 weeks.
Well, I think it's very difficult to put yourself in a position to be here. I credit Coach Smart a lot for that. I credit this staff a lot for that, and these players to be able to stay humble, to stay in the moment, to be where your feet are. And those are things that we constantly are talking to our players about. But the leadership from Coach Smart's been outstanding as far as managing the moment we're in, but also from a staff standpoint, spearheaded by him, is looking forward to the things that can take us down. You know, where do the mighty fall? And those are things we address with our team a lot, and our players certainly understand that. But I credit our players a lot too, because they have to have a certain level of buy-in in order to not just practice what you preach, and our players have done that.
What's hardest? Again, staying there or
Staying there, a lot harder. It's you know, the pitfalls of the world we're in right now, especially in NIL and who's getting what and why isn't this happening for me, and the transfer portal, and you know, to lose only one football player going into this game says a lot about our program.
Six snaps.
Well, depends on who it is, but and some guys can play longer than others. And some guys, you know, after 3. But
What's Jalen?
till Jalen gets tired.
Coach, is there anybody on defense particularly that has stepped up throughout the year?
Well, I mean, there's multiple guys that, you know, considering the amount of, you know, extremely talented players we lost off last year's defense, and to see, you know, Pop, Jamon, how he's come along, Smile Munden, you know, those guys have played really good football for us. Zion Logue, Nazir Stockhouse inside, done a fantastic job for us. Bobby Bills had a really good year. Malachi Starks is a true freshman. Chris Smith has been a guy that we knew was going to play well and has had a fantastic year for us. So, I mean, the list goes on and on when you've played good football, of guys that you were counting on stepping up, needed to step up, and certainly a lot of those guys have.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah. Drew, I think, is outstanding over the last 2 years, listening to him message our team, message our staff. I think does a fantastic job of pulling everyone together, understanding the concept of the team and how important that part of it is. And I've been really, really impressed with Drew and his messaging for our football team and for our staff. Well, a bunch of them last year was burn the boats. He talked about that to our football team, which was an awesome story. And obviously, my dad was a history teacher, so I heard a lot of these stories at home. My dad was a great storyteller. But he talked in terms of that mentality going into a game. But he's had a lot of really good stories. It's probably too many to tell, and how well he relates with our football team and our staff. And I think that's the thing. It's not just a great story. It's relating to the situation at hand and understanding where we are as a team. And I think obviously he has a lot of communication with Coach Smart, and their communication and messaging has been really good. Well, I think that it's really important because in our society right now, you don't know what messaging our guys are hearing. Social media, negativity, everyone has a platform. No matter how ill-informed and ignorant the platform may be, everyone has a platform. So I think it's really important for our guys to understand the messaging from our organization. I don't know. I've never done it before. Ivan, how are we doing?
On field, off field meeting, a moment as defined as steps.
You know, I don't know that there would be one moment. I think it would be to capture his career and tell that story is pretty amazing. To see a guy that dreamed to come to the University of Georgia, be the quarterback at Georgia, it's what he always wanted to do, to walk on, to have it not going the right way or see it the way he saw it, to go to Jones Junior College in Ellisville, Mississippi, to come back to Georgia. And when I stepped on campus, I guess a spring ago, he was third string. And I think Todd Monken said it best. We kept telling him he wasn't good enough, and he kept proving us wrong. So Todd said that last. I saw a quote last for the Peach Bowl, I think it was, but he kept proving us wrong. And it's a great story about resiliency, persistence, which we don't have a lot of that in our society right now. And a guy that continued to stay at what he wanted and was unwilling to compromise. So I don't think you can put one moment into it. I think you got to look at the whole story.
Second thing is, stakes are bigger than how much time to prep. Before I just got a month.
Yeah, in a month you can screw a lot of things up.
So this is better.
I like having the time frame we have. You never have enough time, but you can start creating a lot of issues for yourself when you got a month of what if game, I call it. What if they do this, or what if they do that? Well, they haven't done that, so let's make an adjustment in the game. But that time you have sometimes is too much time.
What struck you about Jadero when he got on staff, and what has he?
Well, I thought we interviewed him, and right after the interview, we all knew as a staff that's the guy we needed to hire. Extremely bright, great personality, been great with our players, has brought some good ideas to doing some things a different way, which is always good. You need to have different ideas that inject in your staff. And but I think Jadero's got a huge future in this profession.
Next, you have two freshmen, Dalen and Jabari.
You know, Dalen's really a very physical corner, a guy that's willing to tackle. And that's not always the case with some corners, but extremely bright, intelligent. I think he's got a great future at Georgia. Really has learned a lot of the stuff and the techniques and the fundamentals of what we work on extremely well, and I think he's got a really bright future at Georgia. Ja'Cory really has never played defensive back before. He was more of a receiver and kind of played like an outside backer in high school. So there's a lot of firsts for him. And when you're playing in a complex system that depends on the safety to make all the calls, there's been a learning curve. Ja'Cory is extremely bright, but he's doing a lot of things for the first time he's ever done them. So you have to account for that. And he's, again, got a very bright future at Georgia. He's going to be a really good football player. He has ball skills, he can run, he's got girth in his body, he can tackle. He's a willing tackler. He's a great young man and somebody that I enjoy coaching. Well, you know, again, a guy that's great resiliency and some tough setbacks with his foot and his knee last year. And then coming back off that, I don't know that Tyke was probably full speed till about mid-season. And he's worked himself into that role. It's been tough and frustrating for him probably at times with playing time, but a guy that's a really good football player. He's done a great job when he's had his opportunities in the defensive backfield for us, but also done a really nice job for us on special teams. Really impressed. DeMarcado and Miller are both talented guys. They have a good stable of backs. They do some two-back at times, but that's the thing about this football team. You don't get confused. They're a very physical team. They run the ball extremely well. They're very balanced in what they do by personnel grouping. They're about 50-50 across the board, run and pass, and that's sometimes you hear air raid, you get a little confused on that. This is a very physical team that runs the ball extremely well.
Coach, congrats on a great season.
Thank you.
What's been the most special part of the season? Maybe your favorite memory?
I like winning, so winning games is a lot of fun. So, but I don't know that would be one thing for me. I enjoyed this is a very enjoyable group of players to be around. It's a great staff to work with. Coach Smart and I, of course, go way back and are very close. But just I think the day-to-day operation with the staff and the players has been a lot of fun.
Okay, so the team on cover, it's the Longhorns, to my alma mater.
No, yeah.
I deal with Quan
Cosby says hello.
Yeah.
Quan's a great guy. What's your favorite memory as a Texas fan taking it back?
Well, he caught a touchdown pass against Ohio State that was pretty important. But Quan was a great player for us. My youngest son, Whit, who is now a junior in high school, he could not pronounce his Q's and C's when he was little. And when he caught the touchdown pass in the Fiesta Bowl against Ohio State, I remember Whit came to me and said, "Ton Tosby's a great player, Dad." I was like, "Well, it's not really how you pronounce his name, but it's close." But he was a great player, great young guy, and I hope he's doing well.
He's doing great. Thank you, Coach.
Yeah, you got it.
As a defensive coordinator, kind of speaking for the offense, what kind of confusion can the 3-3-5 cause?
Well, again, I think that as a defensive or offensive player, you get used to what you see. So as an offensive line, you get 4 down, you get 3-4 structure, 2 overhang backers. You know, most everybody in college football runs some form of that. And now when you go face something that you've never faced before, it creates a little angst, a little uncertainty about it. Well, how are we going to block this? How are we going to protect this? Where are these guys? Because it's not a normal structure that you face. It's kind of like when you're a defensive coach and you face the option. Well, it's not really something we see a lot, and you got to be able to adjust and adapt to it. You know, different than you play somebody that's got a 2-back system now. Well, that's not really something you see a lot. When I first got into coaching, that's what everybody did. So I think you get good and you get more familiar with the things you see. It's just not something you see a lot of, and I think that's what I would equate it to. 3 did pretty good when he came in.
Yeah, just what have you seen from 3?
Both backs are big, strong, physical guys. Run behind their pads. They get north and south. I think that a lot of their run game is downhill running game. That's what they want to do. Again, as I said before, they're a very balanced football team. They run the ball extremely well. They have an offensive line that has about 180 starts. So they got a very experienced offensive line, and they have a quarterback that can hurt you running the ball and throwing it. So that helps everybody within the running game system right there. Well, he had a bunch against Michigan, and I think Michigan's pretty good on defense. So ran the ball extremely well.
Last week was Stroud being able to scramble and create some big plays with his legs against you guys. Was that unexpected for you guys, and facing Duggan and that being something that's on tape with him?
Yeah, you gotta be able to account for his legs, and that's what's very difficult to defend is the off-rhythm plays with a quarterback like him, and he creates a bunch, and he creates a bunch of them that create explosive plays. So you got design running game, which he obviously does extremely well, and then you have the off-rhythm plays, which he creates a lot of issues for you. So absolutely, we've got to be dialed in as far as rushing the passer, as far as keeping our rush lanes, staying disciplined in our rush lanes, to be able to be able to limit him. What's that?
What makes Jalen Carter special?
Well, he's extremely talented. I mean, he's a 300-pound plus guy that has fast twitch, has really good block recognition as far as run pass, pullers. Some guys have innate ability to see and recognize those things, and Jalen has that ability.
What does his versatility do to help you in terms of game? What can you do with him?
Well, we try and create as many one-on-ones as we can. It's hard to chip a guy inside, so that's one thing. But we know people are going to turn the protection to him. We've got to do a good job of trying to create as many one-on-ones as we can.
He said he prides himself on being kind of a 4-down player, 3-down player.
Oh, he's a 4-down player.
He also said he got tired of the Peach Bowl.
Yeah.
Did you see
Well, the most exerting thing you can do as a football player is rush the passer, and that's where we got to do a good job. We do a good job of managing snap counts in the game and making sure. Because once a big guy runs out of gas, they're done. I mean, they're not going to regain. It's not like a skill player. So we got to make sure that we manage those snaps the best we can.
Coach Scott said he's very coachable for a guy with his ability
Yeah.
and his pedigree.
Extremely bright, extremely intelligent, very coachable.
How does that express itself in terms of his growing his game and improving it?
Well, you got to have guys that are willing to listen, that are willing to be coached, and Jalen certainly is.
In the wake of the DeMar Hamlin situation last Monday, I'm just curious, what's the process like, the preparation like for those rare but extreme medical?
Ron Corson, our head of sports medicine, who does a phenomenal job, and Coach Smart met with our entire team the next morning, explained the injury, the unfortunate situation, and made sure our players understood what happened and the circumstances within it and how it happened.
5 minutes are remaining in the Georgia media session. 5 minutes are remaining.
What has he meant to this team?
Who's that?
Chris Smith, Monday night.
Oh, yeah.
Last game.
Fans, don't forget to join us all weekend for Playoff Fan Central. Playoff Fan Central is located here at the Los Angeles Convention
Well, he's been able to
Center.
accomplish,
Offers a wide array of
as a safety at Georgia, a lot more than the rest of us. I can tell you that right now. And what he's, the leadership he provides, the work ethic, the practice habits. He's what you want in a player. I'm a huge Chris Smith fan. Love the guy, how he goes about his business, and I would say this. He'll get mad when I say it, but the intangible quality he has supersedes his ability. That's a compliment for how he goes about his business.
I realize this is a dumb question, but a lot of people have compared Stetson's career to a movie. Is there an actor out there that you think could play Stetson in a Stetson Bennett?
I don't know. You got to ask somebody else. I don't know about that. There's only one Stetson Bennett.
Was there a point in the offseason where you kind of noticed that this group had the right mindset to come back and do this again rather than kind of rest on the laurels?
As far as the football team, the entire team?
Yeah, the team, the coaches, everybody.
I was, we were very young, and you never really know when you're young or what you're going to get, how you're going to respond in front of 80,000 people. And I think that I've said this before, I think our offense kind of let a very young, youthful defense kind of get its footing as the season went. I mean, first ball game of the year is 28-0, and you ain't sat down yet. And so they enabled us to get our grounding a little bit, to get some younger guys that maybe have not been in this position before a little bit more grounded. So I think we've played really good complementary football, starting out with that, which I think that was critical, to let our guys not have to play a tight game early and be able to grow a little bit as a defense. And then as we've continued to grow and progress, they've done everything that I know Coach Smart's asked as a head football coach, as we've asked as assistants. I think we've grown in some maturity roles that we needed to grow in, and you credit the players on that, and you credit the structure of our program.
On that structure, I know Kirby and Drew Brandon talked to the team in the offseason about how to let it fall and preventing complacency. Did that, you think, seep in a little bit?
Absolutely. I think that the messaging from Coach and from Drew have been outstanding, and our players are bought in because they see the success that we've had. And it's easy to sell it when we have success. So our players understand that there's something we're doing right as far as those things are concerned. But I love those settings, those skull sessions that are really intimate as far as your team is concerned and your players are concerned. You got guys that are speaking and telling their story, and you learn so much more about somebody rather than just the football side of things. And I think those have been really, really beneficial for our team.
I always hear about Drew. What is it about Drew?
I think Drew does a great job of, it's one thing to tell a story, it's another thing to tell a story that's meaningful that our players will understand. Burned the boats last year going in the national championship game. Great mentality. And that's it. This is it. This is all we got. But then changing the narrative a little bit here and there that keeps our players interested, and it relates well with our team. And it's a message that Coach Smart wants delivered, and I think it's been huge for us. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is 1 minute remaining in the Georgia media
Yeah, Frank.
session.
Yeah, how you doing?
1 minute remaining.
Good to see you. Take care. Yeah. No, Ross. Yeah. How you doing, bud? You doing all right? Yeah, you doing good. Just making it, man. Try and get one more. Yeah.
How you been?
Good.
Enjoying things?
Same old, same old. My oldest is a walk-on at Georgia, the quarterback, and my youngest just won the state championship at Baylor in Chattanooga. He's going to a boarding school there. And, the coach that coached both of them in high school is now the coach there. So he went up there.
They won the state title.
Yeah, so that's really good. He's got a chance. He's got some offers. Quarterback.
Oh.
Yeah. Who would have thought that?
Hey, good to see you, man.
All right, well,
Yep.
take care, man. Good to see you. Yeah, I did. I'm going. That's right. That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's Media Day. For those members of the media who took transportation from the Media Hotel, departures will begin shortly in the same location as drop-off. Fans, don't forget to join us all weekend for Playoff Fan Central. Playoff Fan Central, which is located right here at the Los Angeles Convention Center, offers a wide array of family-friendly entertainment and interactive experiences that will put you right in the middle of the action as we celebrate the pinnacle of the college football season. Admission is free. Just download the CFP Playoff mobile app on your Apple or Android device to get started.